Alright, now let's talk about amplitude, which in physics or math, it's the distance from the middle of a wave to the top or the bottom, or half the distance from the maximum or the minimum on a wave. So for us, it's going to be that number in front of the trig function, so like sine or cosine. It could be positive, it could be negative. So that number kind of tells us two things. For one, the sign of it. If it's positive, that means our graph won't be reflected. So if A, the number in front of sine or cosine, is positive, for sine, we're still going to start at the middle and go to the max. For cosine, we're going to start at the max and go down. So let me reiterate that. Okay, so if the A is positive, we're still going to start at the middle for sine, and our graph's going to look like that. Okay, if A was negative, y equals negative the sine of x, we're going to start in the middle, and now we're going to go down first, so it gets reflected. All right, so the sine of A is going to tell us something. Same thing with cosine. If it's y equals the cosine of x, we're going to start at the max, and the graph's going to look like that. But if it's reflected, if it's y equals negative the cosine of x, now we're going to start at the minimum, and our graph for one period is going to look like that. Okay, the other thing that A tells us is the distance that our maximum and our minimum are from the midline, from the sinusoidal axis. So if we were graphing y equals negative 3 times the cosine of x plus 1, okay, I'm still going to plot my sinusoidal axis at y equals 1. Okay, that doesn't change. That's always where you start when you're setting up your axes. Then you look at that 3 in front of the cosine, and that's going to tell you that your maximum is at 4, because that is 3 units above 4. And if you go 3 units below 4, we're at negative 2. And now our y-axis is set up. Okay, our x-axis is going to be set up the same way, because our period is still 2 pi. Okay, and now everything is set for us to graph. Now the negative is also important. That's going to tell us that we're going to start at the minimum, because cosine of 0 is 1. And that's the biggest value that cosine could equal of any angle. So that's why we always start at an extreme with cosine graphs, either at the max or the min. Alright, so the cosine of 0 is 1. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3, plus 1 is why we start down here at negative 2. Okay? Now, once we start there, then we're going to go every increment, we're going to move either up or down a units. So we move over to pi over 2, that's an increment, we move up 3 units. Move over to pi, move up another 3 units. Move over pi over 2 again to 3 pi over 2, and we're back down 3 units. And then go over to 2 pi, and we're back to where we started. And this would be one full period of y equals negative 3 times the cosine of x plus 1. Alright, if it said to graph 2 full periods, you would just keep going with that same pattern. Alright, and that's all you really need to know about A, or amplitude. Alright, and one other quick thing to sum up here. Amplitude refers to the absolute value of A. So the amplitude technically is always positive, but A is the number in front of cosine. That could be negative or positive. Alright, so the amplitude is strictly this distance right here. Alright, and then the sine of A will tell you if it's reflected over that sinusoidal axis.